There's a lot of discussion surrounding putting crew on Starship, with most of it focusing on the lack of an LAS, launch abort system. We'll get onto that later, but Starship launching crew, if possible, will have significant impacts on the space industry. It will be used by NASA to transport crew to NRHO if available, given comments like this from Nelson. Having a secondary alternative for crew transportation to Gateway will allow for a significant expansion of the Artemis program. Starship is also very pertinent from a space tourism perspective, because currently the seat price to get to a LEO station is around 50 mil. For a significant expansion of the market, this has to be around 5 mil, an order of magnitude reduction in cost. Starship is the only currently planned vehicle that could achieve this, mostly because of the scale it operates at. So launching crew on the Starship is an important goal. So the question is, can we safely? At a baseline, we'll set the loss of crew chance, or LOC, at 1 in 270, same as commercial crew program. There are 4 distinct risk phases with Starship: launch, in-space ops, re-entry, and landing. We'll group in-space ops and re-entry together because the driving risk factor there for both is micrometeorites and orbital debris, or MMOD for short. So given that we need 1 in 270, we need an LOC requirement in each of these phases to be around 1 in 810. We can move risk around if something like landing ends up being more reliable than 1 in 810, but otherwise that's our limit, and it's a pretty hard one to reach. Now let's get this out of the way. You're not putting an LAS system on Starship. As a system, it just doesn't work. As a result, the space shuttle has a lower common with the risk, so research into that is pertinent. The driving risk failure for Starship will be engine failures once it's flying regularly, and there are 2 engine failure modes worth discussing: underperformance or loss of thrust, and catastrophic engine failures. So that's when we talk about aborts with Starship. It will be underperformance resulting in not reaching the desired orbit, so they have to choose to re-enter early and land at a certain point. This is complicated because you need to land at specific sites with Starship, plus you need to lose propellant on the way down to have the required thrust-weight ratio for landing. But this abort capability would be key in making sure that underperformance or having engines cut off doesn't result in an LOC. Though this is a fairly unlikely situation given, in the first place, given the engine out capabilities of both stages. Catastrophic engine failure is code for an explosion, and this is much more likely to result in an LOC. We've seen it once with SN11, where the engine exploded and there was a complete loss of vehicle. If this happens on Super Heavy or Starship, it's an LOC. So we need the chance of this happening to a Raptor to be 1 in 31,590. RS-25 reached 1 in 1,950, so we need over an order of magnitude improvement. But engines aren't anywhere near the only risk driver in the launch situation. Both of the Falcon 9 total failures had nothing to do with propulsion. Stuff like the COPV issues / in general unknown unknowns will only be caught out by an extensive flight history, and quality assurance is something that they're just going to have to maintain total vigilance about. Achieving 1 in 810 is hard for launch, but as long as they can achieve underperformance aborts, it should be in the realm of possibilities. The fact that so much of the debate centers around the lack of an LAS kind of shows the myopic focus people have. Because in-space ops will easily be the hardest area to get the 1 in 810. MMOD is a driving risk in every currently flying crew vehicle, and with stuff like the Russian ASAT test, it's only getting worse. With the space shuttle, it was the single largest risk at a 1 in 300 loss of crew event, and this was with mitigations. Hubble servicing missions like STS-125 had an LOC chance at 1 in 185. With Orion and Ares 1 back in the Constellation program, they were supposed to have a 1 in 1000 LOC. This was then reduced to 1 in 270, mostly because of MMOD. With commercial crew, it was a driving risk that was making Crew Dragon and Starliner unable to close that target LOC. They now have done, but back in the day, that wasn't guaranteed. So given that we want this to be a 1 in 810, obviously a lot of improvement has to be made here. I don't know how resilient the 3.6mm steel is to MMOD, but if the body can't take MMOD impacts, that will be a significant issue for LOC. And we don't know how resilient the Starship is to heat shield damage either. That could be another significant issue. We'll have to wait and see how ship 20 or perhaps 21 goes. But yeah. And as is, without mitigations, reaching 1 in 810 is very likely impossible. So they do need to do further things in flight. I reckon in-flight heat shield repair with servicing satellites. That sounds very sci-fi, but I think might be justified in this case. Falcon 9 Block 5 has an historical 1 in 17 chance of a failed landing. Given the 1 in 810 requirement, this is obviously unviable. But this will improve given that they're still developing and learning about reusing Beetle rockets, and this is the first time that really an orbital Beetle rocket has been put through the paces. They're on a streak of 19 successful landings now, and the previous best was 24. Unlike Falcon 9, they do have engine out capabilities on the landing with Starship, but this is sort of tamed by the more complex landing profile. It's going to take hundreds of launches to work out the kinks, but I can see this becoming reliable enough. This will probably be the one to borrow risk margin from. To fly crew on Starship safely, we need to significantly improve reliability in several areas. Is it impossible? Probably not, but it's definitely not going to be easy.